Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, dwyervip.com. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Also, if you're looking for a discount, a break in fantasy sports on FanDuel.com for new accounts, the promo code is Dwyer777. Now, this Juergen Braehmer Nathan Cleverly fight has me excited, right? Many people are picking Cleverly to win the fight. Understand that Braehmer is 37, Cleverly is 29. Braehmer's 5'11", Cleverly is 6'2". Cleverly, admittedly, from this seat at least, is the better athlete. Faster hand speed, can throw punches in bunches, can move around the ring, right? Hasn't been that protected. If you look at his record, you're going to notice that he's fought people like Karo Murat, right? Mohammadi, Tommy Karpency. All I'm saying is these are guys in boxing, in addition to Sergey Kovalev, Tony Bellew. These are guys in boxing who are challenging opponents. In other words, each of these men has gone on to fight other big fights, right? Karo Murat fought Bernard Hopkins, for example. So Cleverly has been around. You know, Cleverly has even fought at a higher weight class. This fight's at 175. Let's remember, his last fight against Tony Bellew was at cruiserweight. Cleverly entered the ring weighing 199 pounds in that fight, and that was the third cruiserweight fight in a row that Cleverly fought. So the thinking is that Cleverly is the better athlete. He's going to move. He's going to use his reach advantage, right? When it comes to the physical, Cleverly has the advantage. He's going to use his reach advantage, outmaneuver an older champion who has withdrawn from this fight multiple times in the past, right? They were originally supposed to fight in 2011. It was Braehmer who withdrew from the fight, right? The Cleverly people have been trying to get this fight going for years, and now they finally have the commitment from Braehmer, right? A lot of people are skeptical that Braehmer's going to go through with it. Now, to all of those people, let me just say this, and it's philosophical. It's a bias I have, right? My opinions are biased. I know it. That's why they're opinions, right? Boxing at times is called fighting. It's not. It's professional fighting. These gentlemen are professionals, right? I'll concede. Cleverly is the better athlete. But Braehmer is the better craftsman, right? Understand, Braehmer fights follow a typical pattern. He comes out, the fight is relatively even. Braehmer might even be losing the fight as he's figuring out the lay of the land. Then usually by somewhere in the third round, you notice that Braehmer has the upper hand. Then you notice that Braehmer, the other guy, has figured out that Braehmer was one of the sport's best amateur fighters when he was an amateur. That if you rush up to Braehmer, you're in trouble, right? Braehmer as an amateur beat Ricky Hatton twice, including once by first round KO, right? Sooner or later, the opponent understands that they're in the ring with a poker player, and that whether or not that opponent is the better athlete, the poker player knows the cards to play, right? So Braehmer fights usually by the 7th round are over, right? This guy has deconstructed you. Braehmer's made his living fighting athletes. Enzo Maccarinelli, right? Bigger man, much taller man, right? I would argue that Enzo was the better athlete than Braehmer, right? Got deconstructed, got taken apart, right? Braehmer really is a technician. He's a deconstructionist. So the question is, does Cleverly, in my opinion, have the boxing skills? Because sooner or later, when you're fighting a guy like this, the skills and craftsmanship are going to matter, especially given that Braehmer is a southpaw, right? And southpaws are interesting people, because while a lot of righties don't know what to do against southpaws because they don't see them that often, southpaws know that they live in a right-handed world, right? So Braehmer's going to know what to do with Cleverly. This fight's been talked about for so long, I have no doubt that Braehmer already has an idea of what he's going to do. Understand, craftsmen are different from the rest of us because they'll watch film of guys and they'll see a different game, right? Braehmer's not going to try to beat Cleverly on hand speed and reflexes. Quite the opposite. He's going to have an actual game plan. So, does Cleverly have the boxing skills to deal with the advanced boxing skills of Braehmer? And I believe, even though Joe Calzaghe is backing Cleverly, even though Cleverly is a fan favorite, right? Even though Cleverly, of course, trained for a while with Enzo Calzaghe, right? Joe's dad. Even though Cleverly has fought people like Tony Bellew, who's currently the cruiserweight champion, twice, right? Beat him the first time, right? I don't believe Cleverly is the craftsman that Braehmer is, right? I think following in Joe Calzaghe's footsteps is hard to do, because understand, a guy like Calzaghe, blessed with off-the-page hand speed, right, was going to run a lot of red lights. In other words, you know, sure, I can try to follow Usain Bolt's lead in track and field. Maybe Usain Bolt and I could train at the same facility, right, with the same coach. After all, we're both Jamaicans. The problem is, guys who are that talented are able to do things that aren't the best form, right? Usain Bolt gets out the blocks a little slow, doesn't he? Right? The first 30 yards of a 100 meters isn't his race. If I follow his lead and I get out the block slow, you know what's going to happen? At about the 30-meter point, Usain Bolt's going to kick it into a gear that nobody else in the world has. He's going to blow by the field. Now, unless I have that gear, me following Usain Bolt's unorthodox style isn't going to get me gold, silver, or bronze, right? Joe Calzaghe was blessed with the boxing equivalent of Usain Bolt hand speed, right? In the sport today, you know, it's Gary Russell hand speed, right? It's Manny Pacquiao hand speed, right? Being in the same gym, you know, talking to Joe, watching Joe, or watching Manny, or watching Gary Russell is not going to give me that hand speed, right? Cleverly has a hand speed edge on Braehmer, but not a Joe Calzaghe hand speed edge. Understand, too, that Calzaghe married that hand speed with the ability to make adjustments. So, against an unbeaten Kessler, Calzaghe notices things and changes his style. That's not Nathan Cleverly, right? I cannot imagine a worse game plan against Sergei Kovalev than the one Nathan Cleverly came up with. Right? Really? You're going to come in and try to outslug Sergey Kovalev? Is there anyone watching this video who thinks that that's going to be Andre Ward's strategy in his next fight? And the sad thing is that, Cleverly couldn't make adjustments. By the way, there's a video up here online, look it up, my pre-fight thoughts on Cleverly against Kovalev way back when. Right? To me, that film is troubling. Cleverly looks like a great athlete whose advantage in the sport of boxing is being a great athlete, not advanced boxing skills. Right? He seems to have everything going for him. Size, hand speed, foot speed, except boxing know-how. And unfortunately, in this sport, where you have people who don't have great hand speed, right? Who, aren't going to overwhelm you or dazzle you with their athleticism, who are among the best in the sport's history, right? Juan Manuel Marquez, Bernard Hopkins, right? In my eyes, that places Cleverly at a disadvantage. I also worry when it looks like a guy has so much trouble making weight that the guy abandons his division and decides to fight for an extended period of time in a different division. Now let's just do the math, right? The divisions aren't all equal. Understand, if I go from welter to junior middle, I'm only going from 147 to 154. Okay, 7 pounds. All right, Johnny, put down the dessert. Hey, hit the gym a few more times, right? Low carb it. Stay away from carbs for a while. Okay, maybe a 7 pound swing. I could see a guy saying, okay, you know what? I want dessert. I'm going to jump up from 147 to 154. And if it doesn't work out, I'll come back down to 147 and live the Spartan life of a boxer trying to make weight. But let's do the math, folks. Light heavy's 175. Cruiser's 200. Cleverly didn't enter the ring against Bellew at 176 or 177. Right? He gained the weight to fight Bellew. Worse yet, he was already at the weight. Because after he lost to Kovalev, he leaves the division and starts fighting as a cruiserweight. Don't you see the problem here? He's 6'2". Boxing can do a lot of things, but it can't defy physics. Right? I think Cleverly is a guy who, at 175, is fighting out of his weight class. I think he's starving himself to make weight. This is a big guy. How many guys 6'2" do you know, other than boxers, right, who weigh 175 pounds? I'm a big believer, too, in looking at how the guy looks at the weight. Now, just like I'm a skeptic on whether Kell Brook, who to me had really no body fat at 160, as to whether Kell Brook is going to drop weight, drop from 160 to 147 to fight Errol Spence, right? A guy who'd be serious competition if Brook never left 147. Right? You're going to be on a diet and then you're going to fight Errol Spence? Same thing here. Right? I'm looking at Nathan Cleverly and I'm like, really? This guy who was fighting as a cruiserweight, what is it, like 3 fights as a cruiserweight? I'm to believe that he's going to lose the weight and then hop in the ring with one of the masters at 175 pounds? Make no mistake, I believe so highly in Braehmer. I think Braehmer can hold his own against whoever wins. Kovalev, Andre Ward. Right? This guy's underrated. People in the United States don't quite know him because he fights a lot in Germany, where, by the way, this fight's going to take place. So what I think, since I believe Braehmer is a master, a technician, a craftsman, and since I view Cleverly as an athlete who doesn't really have the instincts to know the lay of the land, who can't fight blind, right? Doesn't, is a guy who needs his corner. Isn't a guy who in a fight is seeing the lay of the land and making adjustments on the fly in the ring. Right? As I see this fight, I think it's going to be a tough start for Braehmer. I think Braehmer's going to come out and he's going to be hit with a bunch of hand speed, size, right? Bigger guy, Okay, you're fighting an athlete. Those first couple of rounds, yeah, they are tough. Then we're going to get to the part of the fight where Braehmer figures out how to solve the puzzle. Then I believe he's going to start stalking Cleverly. Stalking him. I believe Braehmer is going to rack up the later rounds. I personally wouldn't be surprised if Braehmer wins this fight by stoppage. Right? Cleverly's not going to know what quite to do with not just a southpaw, but an advanced southpaw. Right? In Germany, they really like precision. Right? They do. Think Mercedes-Benz. Right? Think BMW. Right? Full disclosure, I myself drive a couple of German cars. Well, let me just say, they like precision. In boxing, they notice more than other places a guy who is landing clean shots, who has figured out the pattern. Right? Germany is not a place where they just love aggression. Quite the opposite. They like refined aggression. Right? They don't want volume. They want sharp shooting. Right? Think about the guys who've been German champions, or guys from elsewhere who've come to Germany who have then started to grab the public imagination, or who have grabbed the public imagination. Right? Juergen Braehmer is made for Germany. Right? His game is about precision. Look at the end of the Enzo Maccarinelli fight. Maccarinelli's all beat up and he has nowhere to go. But yet there's never a time in that fight where you think that Braehmer's overexerting himself. Right? He's a math guy. He's going to realize that after you take away Cleverly's hand speed, foot speed, athleticism, right? And you do that by body shots, counter punching, timing, a good jab, right? After you take that away, in my opinion, and I know this is not the popular opinion, in my opinion, this fight is a mismatch. Let me say this too, in Braehmer's favor. Let me say this too. People need to look at Braehmer's life outside of the ring. I know to casual fans, you hear that a fighter is pulling out of a fight, and you say, oh, he must be afraid of the opponent. Oh, he's dodging Nathan Cleverly. Right? Why would Braehmer give up a title and not fight Nathan Cleverly? Right? Understand that while Braehmer is a craftsman in the ring, outside of the ring, he's a guy who's had some problems. Right? Look up his life outside of the ring. Right? Sometimes these fighters, how do I put it? They have problems out of the ring. Right? You might know that a friend is canceling a meeting or hasn't, engaged in a business deal because he's having problems in his marriage. Right? Because, he's under a tax audit. Whatever the reason. So when I hear that Braehmer, who again, really is one of the boxers who has had the most amount of trouble outside of the ring, I'll talk euphemistically here in this video. When I hear that Braehmer is canceling fights, I don't readily assume it's because of the brilliance, greatness, or challenge of his opponent. Right? So, for me, the athleticism of Cleverly is going to wilt away in the second half of the fight. He's going to be a guy who should be fighting a cruiserweight, tired, against a sharpshooter, in the sharpshooter's backyard. By the way, they're fighting in the same arena where Braehmer had his last title defense. Right? So Cleverly is going to find he's in against a sharpshooter. Right? A guy who is going to know how to find his body with regularity. A guy who has power, but who is economical with it. To sum up this fight, I'm surprised the odds are so close. I'm going with the champion, Juergen Braehmer. Right? I'm expecting him to dominate the second half of the fight. Right? I think he is going to beat up Nathan Cleverly. I think Cleverly will be lucky if he leaves the ring in better shape than Enzo Maccarinelli left it in. I think we need to start realizing that Braehmer, simply put, is a guy who warrants consideration for boxing's best pound-for-pound list. Folks, he had 100 amateur fights. He won 95% of them. Right? Understand, he beat some boxers who have gone on to do great things in the sport of boxing. He's a survivor. He's exactly the kind of older fighter you need to fear. Right? Because he's not relying on his reflexes. He's not relying on hand speed. He's relying on know-how, technique, punch, progression, pacing, and spacing. Right? In many ways, he's not that different than Floyd Mayweather. So I like Braehmer in this one. What I want you to do before you place a bet is to research this fight. Google some of the people out there. You're going to see that there are folks out there who really are enamored with Cleverly's chances. Right? Including Joe Calzaghe. The Cleverly narrative is, hey, we've always wanted this fight. This guy's tailor-made for us. Right? Better be careful what you ask for. I don't think he is. I like Braehmer in this one. That's how I see it. Let me hear from you. Leave your comments in the comment section to this video. If you're a Cleverly supporter, tell us how you see the fight playing out. Me personally, I think it's close at first. Then I think technique, know-how takes over. And Cleverly then becomes just a target, right? Wasn't he walked down by Tony Bellew, understandably at 199 in the second fight, right? But I thought Bellew did a good job of getting Cleverly on his back foot, and then I don't think Cleverly knew what to do, right? Tell us how you see the fight going. I hope you do so in the comment section to this video. Thanks for stopping by.